This is Group Two's presentation out of Chapter 6, Coordinated Management of Meeting, presented by Aaron, Elliot, Carla, Becca, and Jose. This will focus on the hierarchy of meaning.
Communication is a vast and full of many different categories, and the category we're going to focus on is the hierarchy of meaning. The hierarchy of meaning is a ranking order of relative significance of four contexts, which is episode, relationship, identity, and culture. That encompasses a given story and as an aid to interpretation, which just means, depending on the situation, depends on how important each one is to you. The speech act is in the central of all of these things, and it's just any verbal or nonverbal message as part of an interaction. It's the basic building block of all of the four contexts that, create threats or promises, maybe compliments.
The hierarchy of meaning is, like we said, created from four contexts. You have the episode, the relationship, the culture, and the identity. The next few slides are all going to touch on all of these specifically and a lot more in detail. But the thing that you need to know is that within each different situation, all of these are going to be ranked in a different order. So say that you're in a very formal situation or you're going somewhere very important, then episode would probably be at the very top, where identity might be at the very bottom. But if you're at a gay rights parade, identity might be at the very top, and relationship might be at the very bottom.
So the episode is a sequence of speech acts, which is the beginning and an end, that are held together by a story. But another way to explain it is it's just a setting that is created by the people within the conversation. It involves a time and place, like being in a classroom or going to a military ball. Every setting has a different meaning to each individual, and for someone that has no family or friends in the military, they may not see it as important compared to somebody who has a boyfriend in the Marines.
The relationship depends on the people within the conversation, and it just suggests how the speech act is going to be interpreted. This also has to do with the way that people are going to talk to each other. Simply put, and it's just talking about how the relationship that you have with whoever you're speaking to is going to affect the way that you actually speak. So for an employer and an employee, it would be very formal. There might not be any curse words used or slang, very professional. But if it was a parent to a child, it might be very scolding or emotional and I care about you, I love you. But and that would be very different from the relationship between an employer and an employee. The word choice would be a lot different, much more emotional words. A boyfriend and a girlfriend can talk to each other so openly and that they don't really talk the same way that you would if it was an employer-employee situation.
The identity is continually crafted through the process of our communication, and our self-image becomes a context for how we manage that meaning. So if an individual thinks that they're hilarious, they're going to try and work that into their conversation. Or if they're retelling a story, their self might be altered to make them look better. Because you wouldn't say something that would embarrass you to somebody that you're trying to impress. Instead of like when you're talking to your best friend, you'll tell them anything, no matter how embarrassing it is.
For the culture, this is due to differences in meanings, norms, and values, such as people from different cultures are going to interpret messages differently. So, for instance, Muslims tend to speak more closely to each other when speaking as a sign of trust, while in America, it's kind of considered an invasion of privacy or personal space. It's kind of, you don't want to be talking to somebody that's a foot away from you. It just feels awkward here. Another example of this is how it's respectful not to look into people's eyes in other countries such as China. But here in America, if you don't look into someone's eyes, they think that you're hiding something or you're trying to be deceitful. Another example is if you were to ask for a bathroom in England, they wouldn't understand because they call it the loo or the water closet. They speak the same language as we do in America, but they do tend to use a different term for the bathroom. Just how they call cigarettes fags and We don't use that word for a cigarette here.
So some examples are you're sitting in a classroom while your favorite professor is lecturing. In that situation, the episode and the classroom of the material you're being taught is the most important feature. Next in ranking, since it's your favorite professor, you might hold the relationship above others compared to a professor that you don't really care for. Perhaps you really enjoy the education process and learning new things, so you would hold that specific culture of learning above your identity where you're one student in a classroom of 30. Another one is a boy and a girl that are friends went to Fiesta, Texas. She's never been to an amusement park and is afraid of heights and only went because she likes the boy. In this situation, her number one in the hierarchy of meaning is the relationship. She likes the boy and is trying to figure out if he likes her as well. Second might be her self-identity, as she could be assessing herself and wondering what he may like or dislike about her. Third and fourth could be individually ranked on culture and episode, considering how she has never experienced an amusement park. The idea of waiting in line might bore her, and in some sense, she doesn't like heights, so the actual place isn't as important as the relationship or her identity.
In conclusion, the hierarchy of meaning is a ranking order of the relative significance of 4 contexts: episode, relationship, identity, and culture. Those encompass a given story as an aid to interpretation. Our speech context is the building block of our communication and how we interact during conversational situations. Within the hierarchy of meaning, we have the 4 contexts which we just described: episode, relationship, identity, and culture.
We apply episode, relationship, identity, and culture to the situation and who is involved. Episode being the setting of the situation, relationship being the nature of the relationship you have with the other person, identity being our perceived self-reflects on how we act, and then our culture can completely alter the meaning within a conversation.
We hope that you have enjoyed this presentation.